that incremental progress over time equals growth and results. That's how it happens. It is up and down. That's entrepreneurship. That's business ownership. You're going to have the ups. You're going to have the downs.
Okay. Welcome to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast, a weekly podcast providing career and creative inspiration to help you build a purpose-filled life. If you're interested in tapping into your creative potential, pursuing a career with passion, and building on your biggest and best resource, yourself, please join me on this path. I'm your host, Nancy Moore, and I want you to know that I'm on this journey with you. So let's get started. Hi, everybody. This episode features Shannon Wilburn, and Shannon is the founder of Shine Executive Coaching. And not only is she the founder of Shine, she is the founder and CEO of multiple companies, including a highly successful business that scaled and franchised. So now she's embarking on her new adventure that utilizes her vast entrepreneurial and business knowledge in a high-level coaching business called Shine Executive Coaching. Our conversation gives insight into her background, how she got to where she is today, as well as some serious tips that align with her overall strategies for success. So I hope that you enjoy this conversation with Shannon. Okay, welcome Shannon Wilburn.
Thank you.
I am so excited to be talking to you. You are absolutely incredible individual and you have so much experience.
Let's set that expectation low.
Well, it's the truth. And we're going to get into the business that you've had. The business it has been franchised and sold and all of that. But it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I love that we're in person. Most of the podcasts that I do are over Zoom. And so the fact that I get to sit here face to face with you, I think this is in all of the podcasts that I've done in my lifetime. I think this is only the second one I've done in person. No, the third. Yeah.
How many have you done in person? I mean, how many podcasts have you done?
A lot.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's so cool.
I think JBF is just a fun story, and people enjoy it. So,
well, I'd love for you to share that. When you say JBF, it's just between friends. And I would love for you to kind of share, because that kicked off your journey.
Yes.
Even to where you are now.
Yeah, it's so funny. I was talking to someone this past week, and I just got back from a franchising convention in Phoenix. And I told someone that recently I've been thinking about my entrepreneurial journey, because I used to say I'm an accidental entrepreneur. And I really feel like that. I think some people think to themselves, I want to be an entrepreneur. And that was never me. When I think about it, my twin sister and I had a business when we were in high school. We made jewelry. And we sold it to our parents' friends, and some of our friends too. And so that was probably my first business, was jewelry making in high school. And then my business partner and I started just between friends in 1997. I was 27. And I don't think either of us thought this will be anything big. It was really just a way for ourselves and friends of ours to make money. So the concept is basically a marketplace for families to buy and sell gently used children's and maternity clothes, toys, and baby equipment in a pop-up arena. So like our franchise owners rent a convention center or a fairgrounds or large empty retail space like an old Best Buy or Sears location. And they set up a temporary pop-up store and invite people who have children's and maternity items to sell that are in great condition. And then they invite people who have a need for those items. And so the sellers make 60 to 70% on whatever they sell, and the shoppers save 50 to 90% off retail. And then there's a third kind of leg. We have shoppers, we have sellers, and then we have a nonprofit leg where all of our franchises benefit in part a local nonprofit.
Okay, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So part of this, though, was a passion for helping women save money.
Yes. myself first.
Yes, yeah. So your husband is a pastor.
Yes, I was married to a youth minister.
Okay.
And my degree is elementary education, and came out of school, worked for a couple of years in as a teacher, and then started having children. And losing a teacher salary was not a huge deal, but still I was contributing to the family income. And when we lost my salary, it was hard. Mm-hmm. It was, you tried to stretch a dollar any way you could. And so I had grown up shopping consignment. That story in and of itself will take me 45 minutes. So we're not going to tell that whole story. Okay. But I had grown up shopping consignment and had learned to budget when I was a teenager, because my dad went through some health issues that changed our life, our livelihood, our life, and all of that. And so I was used to looking for ways to save money. And so when I wanted to stay home, and I knew I wanted to help contribute to the family income, this idea was just an idea, and we thought, we're going to help some families make money, we're going to help some families save money, and I'll get to shop first.
Gosh, yes.
That's really what I thought. It was in my house. We knew it. We didn't want it to be a garage sale. We wanted it to be more upscale. And so we invited 17 of our friends from church mostly to be consigners. And Devin, my co-founder, and I got everything ready. We sold $2,000 worth of merchandise. Someone tried to buy my couch. We used the kitchen drawers as cash drawers. And I made $150 and Devin made $150. And I say that's the hardest $150 I think I've ever made, because it was hours upon hours of work. But when we were done with that first event, the shoppers were saying throughout the weekend, when are you doing this again? And we were looking at each other and like, are we doing this again? And the sellers, when they got paid, they're like, are you guys doing this again? And we're like, are we doing this again? And so we knew if we did it again, we wouldn't have room in my house, because I had a tiny house. And so we asked my rich friend who lived in South Tulsa and had a 3-car garage if we could use her garage for the next sale. And then the rest is history. We went from my house to a 3-car garage to a church gymnasium, and then to the Tulsa Fairgrounds. And then we started selling franchises. So the Lord has just really given us favor and provision on our journey. It's not been all rosy. There's lots and lots of challenges and failure that we had throughout our businesses now. And it's fun to be able to share the story. And it's funny, I mentioned I just got back from the International Franchise Association. Yes. There's 3,800 attendees, and their pre-meeting, they have about 400 people at something called an annual leadership conference. And myself and the new owner of Just Between Friends, because I recently had a transaction, got to be on stage in front of 400 people, and they did a case study on us. So we got to share the good, the bad, and the ugly about growing the brand over the last 20-something years, so that everyone else in the room, I mean, there's many other franchise systems present in the room, so they could learn from things we did well and things we didn't do well.
See, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
I'm curious, because you said you had an elementary education background.
Yes.
So what a leap that is into business, yes. I feel like. So how did that work?
Yeah.
I mean,
this is something else that I feel like is kind of a recent revelation in my mind.
Yeah.
Since my husband was in youth ministry, I guess I had a propensity to want to do things, right? I had started that business. I will call it a business, but it really wasn't like an official business in high school. But because my husband was a youth minister, at the time we didn't have a girls' youth minister. So it was really just my husband, and then I was helping. And really, I was the girls' youth minister. I was just unpaid. And so I planned events. And so before we started Just Between Friends, I had 7 years of planning events for the girls in the youth group. And, we had a youth group of about 300 people. So there were lots of events, lots of activities happening, girls' retreats, mission trips, girls' Bible study, all that kind of stuff that kind of fell on me because I wanted it to. And I learned, I guess I cut my teeth on event planning as a youth minister's wife. And then when we started having the sale, the Just Between Friends sale, well, I knew how to market because I had been doing it. I knew how to encourage people to sign up for things, and because I'd been doing it. So looking back, that is a recent revelation. I don't think I had really recognized that was my path until recently.
That's interesting.
I think it's fun that because our lives vary so differently and we can go just about any way. I bet it's common, Nancy, for people not to recognize when they get someplace how they got there. And yeah.
But having an appreciation for saying yes to different things along the way, though. Yes. And then, that's enriching. And then you get education along the way. Yes. Because you never know where you're going to use it later on.
Yes. Yeah. Very true. Very true.
So but it's a cool epiphany that it's like, gosh, I did get some education.
Right. Yes.
Boots on the ground.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And learned how when people say no, that's okay, that you can move on to the next. And so because event planning is a sales game. You can't have an event if no one comes. And it's even in youth ministry, like you're marketing to the girls in the youth group, like, come on, it'll be fun, And if one says no, that doesn't mean no forever, maybe just no to this one thing. And so I think it built up some resiliency in my heart of not being afraid to ask people.
Okay. So what would you be afraid of now? What would be so challenging? Because you have accomplished so much.
Yeah, I think I really don't live in fear. I just don't.
I love that.
Good. I just don't. And are there things that scare me? Yes. I have asked the Lord's forgiveness in some ridiculous ways. Like, my husband and I are so blessed with relationships. Our children are wonderful. Our grandchildren are wonderful. We're financially stable. But I still think, what if something happens? I think it's to our children or our grandchildren, those types of things. Yeah. But right now, I started a new business last year. So just, about 6 months ago, I'm coming up on starting my 7th month. And there's lots of things in this new business that I've never done, but I'm not fearful because I know I can learn. I know I can find people to teach me, or I can hire people. And, I think when I think about fear, you go to worst case scenario. That's a tactic I use when I start feeling fearful. It's interesting that we're talking about fear. My husband had COVID. I don't know if you knew this. During COVID, he had cancer in 2015. Got over that, has 4 autoimmune diseases, and then was diagnosed with another type of cancer in 2019. So when 2020 came around, we knew that if he got COVID, it would not go well. And in October of 2020, he got COVID. And 3 days later, he went in the hospital, and he was in the COVID unit for 26 days and was intubated for 8 of those days towards the end. Like, for 2 weeks, they didn't intubate him, but he continued to get worse over those first 2 weeks. And I couldn't be up there with him, of course, because they weren't letting people up there. And then they finally intubated him. And then they extubated him in the COVID unit. And they moved him to a step-down ICU. And I got a call at like 6 a.m. that morning that they had moved him to a step-down ICU and that I could go up there. And so, I rushed up there. I might have brushed my teeth. I know I didn't put on makeup. I'm like, I am going. I've not seen my husband in 26 days. And I thought he looked amazing because I hadn't seen him in 26 days. But looking back, he had lost 50 pounds and he was not doing well. And that night he got reintubated, and for 9 more days. And I became Mitch Wilburn's communications manager. And he, we have a church of 2,000 people, and we've had multiple youth group members over the years go through. He's now the senior pastor, and going through that and being the one who felt like I needed to communicate to our congregation and ended up being the greater Tulsa area. I mean, lots of people we didn't know were praying for us because friends of friends, would you please pray for our minister, But the day he got intubated, I remember writing, we are not going to live in fear. We are going to have faith that he is going to make this through. And I believed it. And thankfully the Lord answered our prayer how we wanted, because he did make it. He's a walking, talking, living, breathing miracle. And not that I didn't have times through that process, and not to make this a sad podcast, but it's part of my story. There were times where I did feel fearful, like my husband's going to die. And I remember one time one of the night nurses came in. She was probably 22. She was so cute. And I said, I can't remember what her name was, but I remember what she looked like, I said, I'm sorry. You're going to be the nurse where you get to see me cry. And she didn't say a word. She just picked up the Kleenex box and handed it to me without a word. And then I got to bawl for, 30 minutes, just boo-hooing. And then I wiped my tears, and then, okay, I got it out. But, that story, it's part of our story. And it's also part of Just Between Friends story, because it was kind of a catalyst to see that it might be time to sell the business. And so was able to have a transaction in December of 2022. And now I get to spend more time with my husband than I was.
Oh, good.
And of course he's doing amazing. He is, if you met him, you would not think that he had been through that ordeal, because he's everyone's best friend. He is just a kind, wonderful communicator that just, when you leave his presence, you feel better. So anyway,
you make a good partnership.
Yes, yeah. I
feel like that about you.
I absolutely am blessed to be Mitch Wilburn's wife.
That's so neat.
Yeah.
Good. I love that. So, let me ask then, you mentioned a business.
Yes.
So is that Shine Executive Coaching?
Yes. Yeah, that's the new business that I just started.
So I want to find out about that.
Yeah, sure.
So tell me what you're
offering.
offering.
Tell you kind of the start of that. And so 2021, I hired a president for the brand. So this was, Mitch came home from the hospital in December of 2020. And then that next March, I started talking to one of my executives to see if she wanted the president position. And we officially did that in June, but unofficially she started in that role in March. We just hadn't announced it to our franchisees. And so she became the president, which took about 6 months of kind of onboarding her into the president role from where she was before that. Just a couple of 2 or 3 meetings a week, just going over stuff. But that opened up my calendar. Probably 30 hours a week I got back as far as capacity. Significant. And so she took on those added responsibilities, and I was the CEO, but my job description changed to very up and out, like big relationships, culture, vision, all of that, which when you're doing the down and in stuff and the vision stuff, there is, I don't know if you've heard of EOS or Traction, Entrepreneurial Operating System.
No.
Okay, I'll have to tell you about that.
Okay.
It's an amazing way to run your business. And so we started operating on that EOS model.
Okay.
Where I was the visionary, very up and out, and she was what they call the integrator. And she was very down and in. So all the VPs reported to her, and then the departments reported to the VPs. And so I only had one person to manage. That was my president. And she managed everyone else, which allowed space to dream. But what it also allowed was capacity to mentor others. And so my career as an entrepreneur, people have said, hey, can I pick your brain? And absolutely, yes, that's how I learned, was being mentored by others. And so I would say yes I had the capacity then to say yes at that time. And what I found when it was coming time to exit is that I had been mentoring 6 people on a consistent basis month after month. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll do coaching, but I really wasn't sure because I hadn't really prayed about it. I'm just like, I need to start praying for revelation. I need to start praying about what's next for me, because I knew that this is Shannon Wilburn, right? I knew, I hadn't asked the Lord about this, but I was like, I don't really want to stay home. None of my grandkids are local. And at that point, I was 52. I'm like, I can absolutely still honestly have another career.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I was just trying to figure out what that is. Am I going to become the CEO of another brand? Am I going to buy a business, or should I do this coaching thing? And so I wasn't in a hurry. I didn't need to be in a hurry to figure it out. But over the course of about 6 or 7 months, everything was pointing towards coaching. And I'll have to tell you that my president was over at my house, and we were sitting there, and I was kind of talking with her. This was in August of 23. I was telling her the options that I was kind of considering, and she said, Shannon, can I tell you something? I said, yeah. She said, when you talk about Shine, which is Shine Executive Coaching, because I had formalized the name and formalized it as a paying gig with those clients that I had already had. I just hadn't been looking for new clients. She said, when you talk about Shine, your eyes light up. And I was like, okay, Lord, that's the confirmation I needed. And so in September, like a few days later, I hired a digital marketing agency. I hired a social media manager, and we were off to the races with just letting people know what I was doing, which is I had to get clear on who I wanted to work with, my ideal client. And my ideal client is a 6-figure entrepreneur who wants to be a 7-figure entrepreneur. So people who maybe have gotten to a certain point in their business and they know there's more, they just feel stuck maybe, or someone who's growing fast but it feels chaotic. And I can come in, and it's very, very easy for someone to look at your business from an outside perspective and see things, move this lever here, move this lever here to get massive change and get massive growth. It's hard when you're in the day-to-day because you don't see it strategically sometimes because you're in it. And when you can get above it and look at it as a whole, being, you can see, okay, boy, if we do this in marketing, and if we change this in operations, and what is the vision piece? What's the core value piece? Let's look at your financials. What can we do here? Just having someone else come in and maybe ask some hard questions that you don't typically, if you're not great at self-reflection or self-awareness sometimes, because that's a learned skill. So it's been really fun to be in the space with these entrepreneurs, founders, and business owners to come alongside them and be their guide. Being a solo entrepreneur, even if you have a team, leadership is really hard at the top. It really is, especially if you're the owner, you're in charge of the team, you're in charge of operations, and you're in charge of the finances. You have to look at your business differently than maybe a hired CEO would look at it. And so really probably my favorite people are the founders and the entrepreneurs, because I feel like I've been there. I've sat in that seat now 4 times. As just between friends, Tulsa was the business I started in my 20s with Devin. We started the franchise system in our 30s. Then I started Coal Creek Farm in my 40s, and this is my thing for my 50s. And it's been very fun to help solopreneurs. It feels like I'm a partner. I don't have equity in the business or anything like that, but come alongside and can be the shoulder to cry on, or can be the kick in the butt.
Yes, exactly. And both are needed.
Yes,
yeah. Both are absolutely needed.
For me too.
That's funny. So where did the name Shine come from?
So thank you for asking that. In 2022, when I was in the process of elevating a new leader and a new owner, my twin sister, who is one of my spiritual mentors, she's just amazing. She came to me and she said, Shannon, I feel like you are diminishing yourself to push someone up. And she said, the Lord does not want you to diminish yourself. She said, you shine, and he wants you to continue to shine. And she made me see that what I was doing, I wanted to elevate the new leader, of course, but she said, you don't have to diminish yourself for that also to happen. And then she gave me a verse. And so I was like, oh, this is awesome. Well, then at Christmas, like 3 days before the transaction actually closed, she gave me a neon sign that said shine. And we had been going back and forth about like, what is the name of this business going to be? And I was like, okay, Shine Executive Coaching it is. And so it's really, I love that she had a part in that, and it totally fits my personality.
Yeah,
and,
it does.
Yeah. So helping elevate others and to help them shine.
Yeah. I'm glad you defined your niche, because
Yeah.
it's important to know the ideal client,
Yes.
that you can help. And
Yes.
you do have the background
Yep.
many times
Yeah.
over. You've named the 4, but
Yeah.
just helping,
Yeah.
Yourself scale and
Yeah.
those businesses.
Yeah, it's all about scaling for more income and
Yes.
impact. Yep.
Oh yeah, scaling for more income and impact.
Yeah. I love working with people who are purpose driven, because that's been my journey. So
Yeah.
it's not just about the money. It can't be just about the money.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can be selective
Yes.
on, and that's probably
Yeah.
part of your core values
Yeah.
of Shine.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
There you go, right?
Yes, I had, so this conference that I just got back from, first off, I think I have like 14 clients right now, and about half of them are 7-figure entrepreneurs and the rest are 6-figure entrepreneurs. And so some are already there, right? But it's just because you're already doing 7 figures doesn't mean you don't need help. And just, I have had a coach for a really long time, and it has been awesome to have someone just to go to and say, okay, I'm having this issue. What do you think? But I was at this, talk about being selective. I was at this conference, and I'm in the process of really trying to figure out if I'm going to do a group, because right now my coaching is one-on-one until I'm at capacity. But in the franchising space, specifically emerging brands, emerging franchisors. So if you have over 5 locations, so 5 units, and you're in the franchising industry, that's kind of the group that we're getting ready to start. It's called Franchisor Founder Growth Collective. Well, I was just handing out 1-pagers to people who I thought it could apply to, and you still have to apply to be in the group. It's not just a y'all come thing. But I got introduced by this guy in private equity who I know. He was in the lobby of the hotel where we were staying. I walked up, I'm like, oh my gosh, how are you? And he was talking to someone, and he gave me a big hug. Oh my gosh, Shannon, so great to see you. And then he proceeded to like sing my praises to this perfect stranger in front of me. I'm like, wow, we should hang out together. You could just introduce me. It was very fun. Well, this guy who probably would be in the demographic of someone who I would look to have in this group. We were headed upstairs to an event that was happening on the 3rd floor, and the escalator's this huge escalator. And so we got on the escalator together, and he started grilling me on the escalator, like, yeah, what are you going to do for me? What are you going to teach me? What am I going to get for my money? I mean, he was just like going like in my face about it. And I said, well, first off, I want to work with humble leaders. Because I'm like, and you're not it. And yes, those are great questions. I said, I don't even know your business. I don't know you. So we're going to start by having a call, and I'm going to ask you a lot of questions to see if I can even help you. I don't know if I can help you. I don't know your issues. So he lightened up a little bit after my humble comment, but it's way more fun to work with someone who wants to work with you versus trying to sell them. And thankfully, I'm not in the position where I have to sell people right now. And I'm thankful that the Lord has given me just experience that I'm able to then turn around and give value to people. And it feels fun to see people succeed. It feels really fun to see them meet their goals and make progress, even if it's incremental. That incremental progress over time equals growth and results. That's how it happens. It is up and down. That's entrepreneurship. That's business ownership. You're going to have the ups. You're going to have the downs. I was standing in front of my franchisees the January after I sold. So January of 2023, the Just Between Friends conference was happening, and the leadership gave me a gift of a book, which is past franchisees with pictures and thank yous. And, it was so meaningful. I was teary, and they said, do you want to say anything? I'm like, yes, I do want to say something. And I just said, you guys, I wish someone would have told me starting my journey of business ownership, that business ownership is a series of challenges. You're going to get through one challenge and you're going to think, yay, I got through it. I'm done with the challenges. And then the next one's going to surprise you. And this is what it is. Business ownership is a series of challenges. If you can go into business ownership with the mindset and expectation that it's not just straight up to the top, that you're going to have ups and downs, you won't be surprised when the downs come, and you'll be just as surprised when the ups come. So I wanted them to hear that and think it's not because you're a bad business owner that you're in a down moment. It's not because you don't have what it takes. It's not because you don't have grit or you're not driven or whatever it takes to be an entrepreneur. It's normal. So let's normalize challenges and push through them and figure out a way around them, but let's normalize it so we don't get in our head.
Mm-hmm. There's always going to be a challenge that comes, whether it's a no,
yes,
a lot of no's,
yes,
probably along the
yes,
way,
yeah,
or whatever the case may be. But
yeah,
learning and growing through those challenges is what's important.
I heard someone say recently, there's winning and there's learning.
Good. That's so good. That is good.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I can't imagine the rooms that you're in where you're hearing these great tidbits. So thank you for sharing that. That's great.
You're welcome.
So you mentioned Cold Creek Farms.
Yes.
So I don't want to not talk about that because I want people to know what that's about.
Sure.
And I know it's in South Tulsa, it's in Jinx.
Yep.
And so if you'll share, because that's another one of your entrepreneurial ventures.
Yes. Yeah. And funny enough, my husband was the one who came up with this idea. We bought some land in 2017 in Jinx, 15 acres in Jinx. And there were 2 old houses on it that we took down, lots of barbed wire. I feel like the person who lived there was using it as a dumping ground. There was, I think in one day we pulled 25 tires out of the ground, shingles, and it has a beautiful creek that's running through it. And so we could see the beauty even when it wasn't beautiful back then.
Yeah.
And so when we bought the property, we just bought it just to have a place to go, to be in nature. We didn't know we were going to move out there, but we ended up building a barn to keep the tractor and that type of stuff. That was kind of the first thing we did. Well, when we would go out there, after we had removed the houses, removed the fencing and all of that, we would go out there, or people that lived in Jinx, we lived in Broken Arrow at the time, would call and say, hey, someone's on your land. I mean, there were very few people who knew we even had the land, much less someone driving and say, someone's on your land. And so we're like, well, I mean, what are they going to do? Nothing. There's nothing they can hurt, right? So we didn't have up any no trespassing signs or anything. But on a few occasions when Mitch and I would be out there, we would be like, oh, there's some cars here. And then we would look in the distance and there was someone dressed up with a photographer. Oh. And so this happened enough where we were like, other people think this is pretty. And then we had a couple of calls from people who we went to church with that said, hey, we know you have the property. Can we do our senior pictures out there? Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, this happened enough. Well, Mitch was like, we should charge people for this. And I thought, yeah, we could do that. And then I'm like, well, or they could use it for free. But then I know myself, like if I have a friend who has a lake house and we're good friends, I am not going to invite myself over to their lake house. But if their lake house was on Airbnb or Vrbo,
yeah,
I would rent their house before I would rent someone else's. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, well, if we give the community, photographers mostly is what I was thinking, if we give photographers a way to use the property and give them guardrails and let them know that it's available, they will feel empowered to come under the guardrails of like, here's it's, X amount of dollars for an hour. And, here are a handful of things that are guidelines for using the property. And so, but it was doing that I knew was going to take effort. And that was back when I was very, very involved in JBF, like working ridiculous hours. And so as photographers would call me, they would say, hey, can we use your land? I'm like, yeah, we're going to make it we're going to formalize it, professionalize it. We're going to make it an actual business. But until then, you can use it for free. The only thing I ask is you give me your images when it comes time to do the Instagram, the Facebook, and the website. Mm-hmm. And they're like, absolutely, sure. And so for probably a full year, I had people using the property just, they would just text me and say, hey, we're going to come out. I'm like, go ahead. We weren't living out there at the time. So when it came time to actually launch the business in October of 2018, I had all this imagery, all this beautiful imagery. And so it has been the most fun business, because in JBF there were so many layers to the team that I did not, when I was only doing the franchise system. So I sold the Tulsa business to Devin, and Devin sold me her part. We reorganized the company in 2011. But from 2011 on, I just was not really at the customer level, meaning consigners and shoppers, because there were too many layers between me and that demographic of our customer base. And getting to do the Coal Creek Farm business, it felt like when I started JBF, it was like I got to walk out and say hello to the photographers when they were on site and to the community. And so that's it. It's basically Coal Creek Farm is really an outdoor venue. It's 15 acres with a creek and mature pecan trees and trails and pasture. And then of course we built our house and we have a barn. And so we've made it an outdoor venue for photography. And so I think last year, I want to say we had like 2,000 different sessions. Wow. Out, and that in some sessions there's 2 or 3 families that come per session. So if I had to guess it, there were probably 3,000 or 4,000 families that came out in 2023. And so it's really fun to get to have people on your property, and it's like a park. Mm-hmm. And you really live there. Yeah, I know. I went on a walk with my husband. I got back into town a couple of days ago, and I hadn't seen him in 5 days. And I was like, let's go walk on the property. And so we went. We just walked for 20 minutes, and I'm like, this is our front yard. Like, this is just such a blessing. But it makes it a bigger blessing when you get to share it, and that is it feels really, really fun to be able to share it.
I know that it's nice because you open it up even for free family time.
Yes, we do. And so 4 hours a day.
Yes.
We have free family fun time where people can come out. They can read their Bible. They can fly a kite. They can bring their dog. They can bring their kids and let their kids play in the creek. Mm-hmm. It's a low water creek. Unless it's just drained, but it's a low water creek, like ankle deep, or in the deepest areas it might be like thigh deep. But most of the areas are ankle or shin deep.
Okay.
And it's clear and it's rock bottom, and it's just, it's beautiful for Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's so neat. Yeah. I saw one time on Instagram, because and I'll link all this, but it's Coal Creek Farms.
Coal Creek Farm Jinx.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Coal Creek Farm Jinx.
Yeah.
And so I saw you brought a bunch of trees in. So you were planting trees.
Yeah, we have planted over 300 trees. Well, probably closer to 400 trees, because 300 of those were seedlings.
Yeah.
But we have some there. The one thing that we were really surprised about, Nancy, when we moved there was that I couldn't wait for the fall after we bought the property, because I'm like, it's going to be so beautiful. Yes. And then it wasn't. I was like, wah, wah.
Not yet.
No, it wasn't. It's pecan trees. And pecan trees, they go from green to brown.
Okay.
And so we did have a little bit of yellow, but there was no red. In the spring, we didn't have any dogwoods or anything like that. So we planted so many trees. Most recently, I think probably what you are, we planted 75 pine trees.
Okay.
And because the evergreens, I think we had 2 evergreens on the entire 15 acres. And so we also have 5 different areas where we planted Christmas trees, Oregon pine and Himalayan cedar for people to take pictures. When all the leaves start falling and it gets, I call it January, February, and March. I'm sorry, December, January, and February are the ugliest parts of the year on the property, and it's still pretty.
Wow.
But it's not, there's no green except for these evergreens that we've planted. So I can't wait until they mature and you just look out and it's really pretty with the evergreens.
It's probably fun to kind of create that too.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Okay,
so in wrapping up,
sure.
I have a theme.
Sure. Yeah.
It's grow more in 2024.
Okay.
And so I'm wondering what you're doing to grow yourself right now, personally and or professionally.
Yep. Thank you for asking this. Probably 3 years ago, I really started digging into reading. So before that, I would read, but I felt like reading was a chore at that time, probably because I didn't have capacity in my life, and so reading felt like an extra. It was something I did on vacation. I was like, if I'm on vacation, I am not reading a self-help book, a business book. I was pretty adamant about that. But about 3 years ago, I was like, I need to be growing in that way. And you can only grow to the capacity at which you have opportunities to learn. And reading books and listening to podcasts and surrounding yourself with smart people, those are all ways to learn. And I'm a super slow reader, so sometimes my reading consists of Audible. So I listen to podcasts and I read. Those are 2 things I do. And I attend conferences. Like I've mentioned multiple times, I just got back from this franchising conference. It's super full of networking opportunities, so where you can be around individuals who are smarter than you, or have skills and expertise in areas where maybe you have weaknesses. And then the educational component, going to the breakout sessions and the general sessions where you're just learning. And I think all of that just goes into your brain, and some of it sits and stays with you. And then you get, because it's then in your heart and in your brain, you get to give it to others. And
it's interesting what people take away from that kind of thing.
Yes.
Because there's probably so much great in the message, but it's just kind of what you cling to. Probably what you're, is needed at the time.
Deion Sanders was one of our general session speakers, and he's a football player, if you don't know.
My husband would love that.
Now he's a football coach in Colorado.
Yeah.
But one of the things he said was, be where your feet are. And I was like, I bet that hits people differently. To me, that was like, okay, when I'm in the room with Nancy Moore, don't be distracted, put your phone down and be where your feet are. Be with the people who are in front of you. I felt like that was a good takeaway from what he said. I mean, there's so many nuggets that I got from this past week that maybe I'll get to share with others.
I know you will. Yeah, I'm sure that your lucky clients are going to probably get a lot of stuff that you learned. So,
wow.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for visiting with me. Yeah. I feel so humbled that you are here.
I feel humbled that you asked.
Well, thank you. This has been a lot of fun and just great learning more about you and your businesses. And I know that Shine Executive Coaching is going to do really well because of you. So,
well, thank you, Nancy. Yeah. I hope I get to impact people positively.
Okay, everybody, that's a wrap on this week's episode. I want to thank you for listening to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast. It means the world to me, and I'd love to connect with you. Please follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Sharing Passion and Purpose, and Twitter at Passion Sharing. Also, if you like this podcast, it would mean a lot to me for you to subscribe, rate, and review it. And as always, all my show notes will be available on my website, sharingpassionandpurpose.com.